Okay, up and running. Okay. Millie, just confirming it's a hybrid meeting?
Not hybrid.
No, meeting for hybrid meeting.
No, so
It says hybrid meeting. Okay, good, so I'm not gonna read that. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming to the New Shoreham Town Council meeting for Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 at 6 p.m. To see the supporting documents for the agenda, go to Clerkbase, click the New Shoreham site on Clerkbase, or if you'd like to watch on YouTube, it is a New Shoreham page on YouTube. Anyone speaking from the audience, we ask to rise and use the central microphone to ensure audio for those watching from home. 6 p.m. session, item number 1 is receive, discuss, and act on an update regarding negotiations with Rhode Island Council 94, AFS CME, AFL-CIO Local 2855, New Shoreham Employees Association, and Town of New Shoreham and New Shoreham School Committee. This item may be discussed in closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2. Sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. Item number 2, is there any benefit to wrapping these both up in
you can put it in one motion.
one motion? All right. Item number 2 is to receive and discuss and act on the update regarding negotiations between International Brotherhood of Police Officers, Local 720, representing members of New Shoreham Police Department in the town of New Shoreham. This item may be discussed in closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. I'll make the motion to go into closed session.
Second, is there anything one can say in advance? I'm assuming not, but
No, it's negotiation.
second.
Okay. Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Keith? Martha? I'm in favor.
Aye.
Sven and Mark. Motion carries 5-0. Closed session on item number 1.
You're bundling it together, right?
And 2, 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Sometimes I just can't simply.
But hi. I know, I haven't seen you. I'm starting to think you don't like me anymore.
That's it.
No, it's okay. Joking. Yeah. A lot. Thank you.
There you go.
So the question I have to ask.
Yeah.
I'll correct the whole. Requests,
Sure.
you know. We all find travel so much.
Right.
Even though we check all the boxes, we don't check. We still don't get the funds.
No.
Do you have a plan?
Oh, we have a plan. Yeah, we're gonna be,
For yourself.
other than pay for it ourselves.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. That's the hard part. That's why we're going after everything. So what's happened is a lot of times funding that's out there is not being used. It's like they're specific for different jobs, resiliency or other things. Flood level. They're not meeting our needs where the infrastructure is actually failing. So we're trying to figure that out. There's we're on an infrastructure bank that's like 33%. You know, this is. Being 50 years, I can maintain something more durations. That's. We're gonna be more. For me, it's something that I think at least a little bit of peace. As far as savings, it shouldn't have been this time. Just yeah, so now,
You know. None of us can actually.
just bringing the facts, like that's all I can do, just bring the facts.
Example.
Just sort of try to best.
I mean, mention it to me.
Oh, yes.
All your work.
COVID testing.
Sure. Yes, we are now. Yeah, we did, just because of the funding. But now the National Health and Human Services is funding. So we are getting contested. We have another 6 months. Yep, I would like to post it. There is data. So if anyone's curious, that's under our file.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Wastewater. And then David, I was close to it's interesting. They're doing very interesting. Yes.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 7 o'clock portion of the town council meeting for Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. I want to remind everybody that if you'd like to speak to us, please step up to the microphone, speak loudly. I just want to make sure that everybody watching at home has the, can hear the proceedings. The results of the 6 o'clock meeting closed session. Now I want to announce that no votes were taken and make a motion to seal the minutes. Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
I am in favor. Martha and Keith. Motion carries 5-0. Seal the minutes. So item number 3 on the agenda would be public comment. Does anybody have any public comment for us this evening? Chris Warfel?
Chris Warfel, Block Island, affordable, attainable housing. I have 2 things I wanted to talk about. One is that we have submitted to the town clerks successfully our request for revisions to 513, which is about affordable housing. And we're hoping that you will agenda that soon so we can, move forward on that. And with that, it gives us a template for other changes to other ordinances like 403, 405, et cetera. Anyways, we just want to let you know that happened. And in addition, I'm asking for an agenda item to discuss revamping the Block Island Land Trust and how it uses funds. We have asked them 2 months ago to look at this issue with the intent to make more money available for affordable housing. Nothing has happened. And I went to their last meeting a week ago and said, if you don't do something, people like me shall try and make an issue of this. And we think that given the money that comes into the land trust, that it is reasonable for us to ask for it to be modified by you and by the state legislature. So there's a letter going into the Block Island Times that expresses this much more concretely. But I really think that we deserve hearing from the town council an agenda item for public discussion on this issue. The fact is, if you do nothing, the land trust will exacerbate the problem with affordable housing, even though it's unintended. And you and I and all of us really have talked about this as being an issue, and it's up to the town council now to actually get behind this and make some difficult decisions. I know that the land trust is well respected and I respect it. I am a graduate from the Forestry College of SUNY, New York, and I am all about the environment, but I'm also about, as Mark Emanuel said, about conserving people. And, it's critical. This is not new information. So I ask you to please give us the allowance to have you agenda this item so we can discuss it in public on how best to do this. The Land Trust has a letter with recommendations. Again, they were asked to do something about this months ago. Nothing has happened. Planning has almost done nothing about this. They have a meeting this week. If you looked at their agenda, they have one item. Maybe it's an emergency meeting. I don't know if that's true, but they have nothing on the agenda for affordable housing. So this is a huge problem. The problem has always been not the inertia within the town, and that's not resonant with you. It precedes you for decades. But it's time to fish or cut bait, more or less, on this issue. And so that's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Any other public comment for us this evening? Alicia Martin?
Legally, it's Miro, but it's okay. I want to thank the council for letting me tag along last week to the State House. It was actually a really crazy experience. I kind of echoing what Chris just said, Friday's Block Island Times article really put into perspective kind of where Block Island's going. We seem to be more invested in conservancy, and I don't believe that's anybody's fault, but I feel as though we need to switch it up. We're at a tipping point. You've heard our points of views, our research, the needs of the community, but we need funding. We need money. We need money to build rentals, houses, condos, whatever we decide the need is to build, but the housing board doesn't have it. When I raised the idea in the beginning of April, it was basically just to open the door for a discussion with the Land Trust. That was it. To see about reallocating a percentage of the real property tax fee that they collect, not forever, but for a few years, just to kind of build the coffers of affordable housing. According to the paper, in 2021, the Land Trust acquired over $2.9 million in land trust fees. That's a lot of money. The Housing Board, $100,000. It's a big difference. So I'm hoping, like Chris had said, we can really start the discussion to hopefully try and reallocate some of those funds for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Anybody else have any public comment this evening? Thanks for stepping up, Michael.
I just wanted to talk briefly about the two pieces of legislation, 12A and B, that are up to be discussed later. I just wanted to speak clearly in opposition to those and kind of advocate for using our power with our lobbyists to speak out against those two bills. I don't want to take up too much of your time. The first bill, the Fairness in Women's Sports Act.
Yeah, we will, that's on the agenda. So we will offer you the public comment when those come up.
Sounds good.
So hopefully you'll stick around with us for a little while. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, public comment is just things that are not on the agenda. I usually announce that, but I didn't do that this evening. Any other public comment? Moving on, item number 4, discuss and act on the request of the New Shoreham Sewer Commission. A is add plat 17 lot 13 to the New Shoreham Sewer District. I see, Mary Ann or Dylan, do you want to speak to this?
Dylan Chase, Sewer Superintendent. As you can see from the map provided, the applicant is adjacent to the existing sewer district. If approved, the applicant of plat 17 lot 13 will be tying into the existing low pressure system on Old Town Road. Hydraulic analysis of the line confirms it's adequate, and the current owner of the low pressure line welcomes the new connection. The Sewer Commission nor I have any concerns with this installation and move for the council's approval.
Thank you, Dylan. Councilor, any questions?
Yeah, Dylan, just for clarification, this is the Bethlehem also house.
That's correct. Mary Jane, yes.
Northeast Park,
I think it's the corporation.
but it was on like 2 years ago.
I believe it's employee housing.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's a house that used to be owned by the Lennox.
yeah. and
Behind the house,
Renati used to live there. Renata lived there, I think.
Yeah, there was only.
Yeah,
So it's the house behind where Hunter Tracy used to live?
Sorry.
sort of near
Yes,
Turtles.
okay, yep, okay, now I know where it is.
She cut down a lot of trees there, opened it up a lot.
It's funny how we decide where these, we know where these places are, like who used to live there.
Dylan, educate me and maybe some others here. How much of Old Town Road is sewered and watered?
It goes just past the Hatfield residence upwards to Littlefield.
Which one? Sewer
Goes to
and
Little-
water?
It ends, a sewer ends at the Littlefield residence. Water, I'm not 100%, but I believe it ends right at Old Town Road, the Turtles property.
Were any other butters notified of this so they could maybe save on some costs of?
There has been, but at this time, Neville, for instance, he's already has a lateral connection there waiting. I believe the neighbor in between also has one. So we put future connections in as a requirement.
Super.
So, sorry, while you're up there, so as you bring the line out, I know it's plat, for those who don't have it, plat 17, or sorry, plat 17, lot 13. Are you gonna basically bring it out on the road so that it's gonna extend it out further, or just
It
to
is.
that one corner?
It's only going to include that corner
Okay.
at this time. We have no other considerations for any expansion at this time, as far as we see. Also, as you'll note, that low pressure connection is a private sewer line, so
Yes.
that's not something that the sewer commission is pursuing at this time, extending on their own.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else from council? Make a motion to add plat 17, lot 13 to the New Shoreham Sewer District.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded by Sven. Public have any comment? David Lewis.
With all due respect, could you tell the audience again and the people at home, you mentioned specific properties, but you mentioned names, but I couldn't hear them. I'm assuming the people on YouTube wouldn't be able to hear them either. And that's exactly the kind of banter among the councilors when you're all talking to one another, but having meaningful conversation that YouTube doesn't pick up.
We also, is this working?
Thank you.
I wasn't using the microphone. Clara Phillips's house, Howie Glenn's house, the house in back behind Wescott's.
Thank you.
It hasn't been Wescott's for,
I know what you mean.
since we were kids.
Thank you, David. Any other comments from the public? Motion made in second. All those in favor, Keith? Martha? I'm in favor. Sven?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Next item is the request, an increase of up to $2 million to the current sewer bond authorization for the cleaning, closed caption TV and lining of gravity sewer project at the annual town financial meeting on May 2nd, 2022. Dylan, you want to come back up to the microphone and explain that?
So I have provided a letter. It outlines essentially that we've identified, first of all, our aging infrastructure, the gravity collection systems upwards of 46 years old in most locations, asbestos concrete pipe. So we're coming upwards of 50 years and we need to make a plan of rehabilitation or replacing these lines. From recent inspection, we found some critical areas of concern. So we're pursuing this pretty aggressively, looking for an authorization for bonding for the 2 million to complete that project. At this time, we are looking at other options between looking at two options, USDA funding or Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. So.
Thank you, council.
Okay, I have a question.
Martha?
Is this the same 2 million, Amy, I think might appropriately answer this. Is this the same 2 million that is on the warrant draft we have?
Yes, proposed.
Okay, so this is not 2 million in addition to what's being proposed here?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dylan, educate us again. Is the process you're planning on using similar to what a chimney person would do, relining a chimney as opposed to rebuilding, and knocking down and rebuilding a whole chimney?
I can't speak to chimneys, but the benefit to slip lining is that it's minimally invasive. We're not going to have to, in the areas that we can slip line, we won't have to excavate. We won't have to repave. So it's the most cost effective and least, I guess, obtrusive option for the whole community. So we're pursuing that wherever possible.
Is it
And
physical
essentially, and how it works is a fiber lining is inserted into a pipe, it's folded, and then it's essentially impregnated with epoxy resin. And then it's formed through air or water to adhere to the pipe. You get a minimum loss of about 0.2 of an inch on the pipe, but you get an extended life of 50 years. So it's robust, it's strong, and it meets all standards, ASTM.
It's interesting.
Can are you done, Mark?
Yes.
Go ahead, Keith.
So, first of all, I mean, I think if you need to do $2 million to do this, I get it. You have, a reputation of doing a terrific job on this stuff. So my question about this particular matter is not related to the value of the project. It's related to process, because we've just gone through 2 months or so of budget conversation. And the first time I saw this $2 million was in the draft warrant. And the process side of that concerns me. What was the timing on it? Why did no one come and say, by the way, guys, we're thinking about needing to do this. It's likely to need to be in the warrant. That concerns me.
I want to mention for the record that I definitely appreciate that, and I do have my own concerns. I understand there's a timeline.
Yeah.
And the urgency of the project has come about in the last couple of months. There's been a lot of discussion about how we were going to pay for this, how much it's going to cost. It had to go out to bid. There's a lot of things there. So we understand that this is short notice. I understand that this is short notice, and it is not this is not the mode I would like to approach the council. I would like to have far more discussion, far more time to be able to make these plans. The concern I have is that the sewer, it just doesn't wait. So despite those efforts, at sometimes we're left in a state of urgency. So at this point, I'm putting forward the request, and if it goes, it goes. But no, I definitely understand and appreciate those concerns. And in the future, I believe it's in our best interest to make plans in good time.
I'm really
concerned.
I'm really concerned about feeling like I'm giving you a hard time because I don't want to.
You're not. It's
But-
generally a sewer commission policy decision,
But
yeah,
you said yourself, 2 months, this has been going on for 2 months,
sure,
the nitty gritty on it.
sure.
And here we are at the meeting where we're supposed to act on the warrant. And this is the first the council hears about it.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if that's an issue with you, with the sewer board, with the way that we gather information or get briefed, but it's a significant concern.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sven.
Dylan, I don't want to jump ahead, but we sort of almost have to, I think.
I held off on C and D. I thought we were doing.
Oh, no, I'm on a B, but I'm looking at the warrant and it's up to 500,000. of indebtedness in the amount not to exceed 500,000, right, Amy?
Where are you?
In the warrant, which is bullet 3. So it's basically just to, so I don't know whether we want to talk about this at the warrant or we're going to talk about it now.
I think
I would focus on your questions now.
Okay, then,
Without jumping around,
perfect.
if that's okay.
So is this ish?
That's the wrong one.
No,
I don't think I,
Yeah, next page.
the 500 is directly related to the 25% request.
so I believe, I'm coming, just for everybody in the audience, just to read this part of the warrant, unless I'm mistaken, and I don't think I am, sorry, David. Town council to issue and refund from time to time bonds, notes, or other evidence of indebtedness in an amount not to exceed 500,000 in order to finance capital improvements at the New Shoreham Sewer District, terms and conditions, and so my question is, up to 2 million is a big number, 500,000's another number of indebtedness. Can Amy, or can somebody help me out with how these two jive?
Thank you, Amy.
And so in order to do that, I'm going to go backwards a little, maybe. Because
And again, this does time with Keith's comment about, okay, I've learned of this for 36 hours and I'm still trying to figure it out. And we've got 2 weeks to figure that out.
And I think as our conversation evolves, we'll probably also touch on the capital planning
Yeah.
process of the town and how sewer does or does not dovetail with that process. But specific to the 2 million and the 500,000. And as you noted, there are several different items listed here that then follow through into the proposed warrant. The first is, as Dylan described, the entirety of the $2 million slip lining project. And remind me, I want to talk a little bit more about why that question is coming up so quickly. But as part of their request to the town to have that included on the warrant, the Sewer Commission is also requesting, although separately, whether town council will consider putting a question to the taxpayers about participating as a broader tax base in the repayment of some of that project. So if you think back to how we did the most recent sewer USDA loans and the most recent water loan, there was some shared participation between the ratepayers and the broader tax base. So there are a couple layers to the questions that sewer is bringing to you today. The first is, will you forward this question about our ability to borrow in support of the entirety of the project, which is $2 million? If the answer is yes, will you also consider asking the taxpayers to participate in a sharing relationship in the repayment of that program? They're requesting $500,000 out of the 2 million. So you can answer, if you answer yes to the 2 million, you may or may not elect to participate as a broader tax base. So that's why that question comes second in the agenda tonight. It actually has to be reversed when you talk about the warrant, and we can talk about the technical aspects of that. At the same time, we might as well just get all the stuff on the table. At the same time, obviously sewer has a number of capital projects on their list, including the slip lining, but also a number of others. And so in the effort to secure as much outside funding as possible, they're looking at USDA, they're looking at Infrastructure Bank, and they also know from reading the newspapers that there's ARPA money out there and that a number of communities are specifically targeting using their ARPA money for sewer because it was explicitly listed as an allowable use under the federal regulations. So sewer is also asking the council, again, in a slightly separate question, about whether they would support the use of the town's ARPA funds for sewer infrastructure projects. Again, it's a little distinct, but it's all part of, I think, that effort of they have a lot to do, and we're chasing as many outside contributions as we can. I'll pause for a minute.
Don't forget you wanted to come in.
And then I'll go back.
So just at first blush, I appreciate the explanation. I haven't quite figured out which part of the web is complicating the next part of the web, which complicates the base, and I'm not sure what's driving what anymore. So, I mean, if one were to say, I'm feeling backwards, if one were to say, does the town support us going after ARPA, or can we go after ARPA together because of all these capital? That's one question which I think is distinct. And we can always use that for slip lining, I guess. I just feel like we're layering on here, and it's this very, very late, very last. Well, now you'll talk about timing. It feels very much of a rush jambalaya, and I'm worried there's too much sauce.
And I think that's a reasonable sense of the world. And if you think back to, again, when sewer went through their most recent major capital programs, that was a pretty lengthy discussion between the commission. We had most of the commission here talking with most of the council. It lasted several months, and it was pretty detailed in that exchange. I think this ship is a little bit different, partly because the technical needs and some of the urgency around that. Sewer is doing some emergency work around the slip lining that buys time, but they're anxious to get going on the rest of the project. And that has probably had less visibility than we all would like. But what's really, I would say, driving the timing is the fact that there are other dollars out there available. So the USDA in particular has let us know, the town, that they have some money available that is left over from other projects that they can likely redeploy in the town's favor if we have this project ready to go.
I'm sorry to keep going.
No, I don't mind.
Okay, okay, yeah, I know it's a public meeting, and I'm sure there are potentially other people listening. Why don't we go after USDA? Why don't we go after ARPA? I think, without seeing all the detail, but it sounds like up to 2 million, somewhat of a reasonable number, and sure, do trust. Why do we need to go bonding now at a time when I'm very worried that there could be all kinds of mixed signals? It's just going after those funds, even if it's with resolutions, even if it's with town support. I mean,
this is the mechanism that's necessary to pursue those funds, particularly USDA, because the USDA program is a combination grant loan.
Right.
And in order to apply for the grant loan program, which is likely to be in the 45% range, you need to have that authorization in hand to do the borrowing.
Mhm.
So that's sort of the technical acceleration that's bringing this forward more quickly. So we can't apply for that money that they may have available to
without the approval.
Without the approval in place, the authorization to borrow. Yes.
Thank you.
There's just one
really technical.
A similar parallel program holds for the infrastructure bank, where we have identified our project as available to them. Where this gets to why we're asking for 2 million and not say 45% of 2 million, because on the infrastructure bank path, which we're also pursuing, it's a full loan with loan forgiveness. So you have to apply for the entire amount of the loan for the entire project, $2 million, and then they may or may not enter into a loan forgiveness program. So we're chasing a couple different structures, and this is the mechanism that we need to have in place in order to pursue those.
Thank you for that.
Keith.
Thank you, Sam. Just one quick technical question. USDA and Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, would those defray the 2 million? Yes, okay. So as long as we're talking about C&D, we got virtually no ARPA money. And the idea of allocating our ARPA money to a limited number of people, for example, I'd like to put it in housing if we're going to put it in anything. If we have money, there are priorities beyond a limited part of our infrastructure, of our buildings, our property tax payers who are on the sewer system. So look, can I just fit? Thank you. The other thing, the request for 25% financial participation, I'm a no on, honestly. I mean, I'm happy to go into why, but it's a range of things, including the fact, who are the largest users of the sewer system now? Who are the largest emitters?
That would be commercial establishments
Like
such as the Spring House, such
the
as
Surf, those, yeah. Well, those people, those large emitters have just spent millions of dollars on property just in the last month. And I am not inclined to support the notion that people who are not on the sewer system who are paying property taxes should be subsidizing them. I would suggest that you come up with a mechanism, as I know you have, that better allocates capital to capital cost to large users. That's, I cannot for me, say to a property taxpayer on the west side who has a small house on a sewer system, that their property taxes are going to go up to fund Lark Hotels and Procaccianti et al., their capital costs associated with sewage. I'm just not there.
Dylan, I know you said there were issues. Could you describe the emergency? Could you describe the issues? Just submit to paint a clearer picture of what's going on down there.
Sure.
I think you should have the opportunity
It's
to do that.
concrete pipe. It's
Yeah.
about 50 years old, and it's sitting in an area, or it was laid in an area where there's high groundwater table. Okay, so over time, much like what had happened with the water company, was the last year or so is deterioration because being in a wet area. So over time, it eats away at the pipe, and we're finding that there's fractures and cracks in the pipe that's allowing that groundwater, that hydraulic pressure into the pipes. So we're seeing significant infiltration coming in. So essentially we're treating far more than what we're billing for. So there's a cost factor there as far as treatment, pumps, electricity, chemicals, things of that nature. So it's concern. And obviously infiltration is one thing, but if the pipe completely fails, then you have exfiltration. We're right next to the Harbor Pond. So this has become urgent emergency to reline or to replace. The best option is relining.
And that's around, you said Harbor Pond, and this is in one
okay, so
area.
this is 650 feet from Bridgegate Square to the Ocean Avenue pump station.
Sure.
That's painted. Yeah.
Okay.
So that whole area. And that's where that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing with the emergency use funding.
Okay, thank you for that, because that just helps clarify what
Right.
you're looking to do. Marianne, did you have a comment? You don't.
Did you have, do you need a clearer picture on the more broad plan?
No.
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we are looking at first going through and developing a report. We're going to have a company come out and camera the lines, clean the lines, inspect the lines, and generate a written report so that we have some backing and understanding for whether it's the commission, the manager, yourselves, Amy, myself, Jim, Jeremiah, so that everybody can better understand and make a plan going forward. Really, where do we stand? All I can stand for in my position is that what I'm seeing and what I saw on Ocean Ave is in a critical state of impending failure. And so we have to do something about it. Are there other sections that are like that? From what we've seen so far, it's give and take. There's some areas where there's some laterals protruding. You got some areas where there's infiltration coming in. You got tuberculation, the normal stuff, grease, things of that nature building up. But the general scope is to develop and evaluate the sewer collection system in such a way that we can put forward a more comprehensive plan in a timely manner and really get an idea of where we stand as far as a community, because honestly, it's an irreducible complexity to it. You take one section or one area or one mechanism or one piece of equipment out of the equation, you're going to be in a violation. You're going to affect public health. You're going to affect the water bodies. So, I'm caught into a circumstance where again, 46 years old. It's pretty urgent. So we got to make a plan.
Okay, thank you for that. And
Yeah.
Amy, just to clarify, if we authorize the warrant item, we may not use all of that money because it might be partially funded because of grant funds. And Dylan, one more question. Oh, and Amy, you can probably answer it too. We did have a public subsidy of the sewer district's project. And it was High Street and the whole ripping all that up and repaving. I do remember. Is that what the project
So
was?
that was water, but it was a water project.
Okay, that was water. Okay, so how much was that project? Okay, so it's not out of the realm to have a public subsidy of sewer water project if it's very expensive. That would benefit the whole community.
I am of the position that the whole of Block Island does benefit from the New Shoreham Sewer District. And I do take in all of the septage and septic waste from the whole of the island as well.
Right.
So renters and such. There is an impact there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Could,
Martha.
yeah, back up to where I started. So we have 2 million that is the sewer taxpayers. And the 500 is just the taxpayers. The sewer ratepayers. And the other is the taxpayers. And I thank you, Dylan, because I was going to ask about the I don't think the sewer line, I talk about deja vu all over again. I remember the battle when this all began in the 70s. And that's when after that was when the Great Salt Pond was able to be cleaned up because the sewer line was finally put in. And it's so much broader than a few people downtown. And my concern would be less, you had a word, wasn't infiltration the other word?
Exfiltration.
Exfiltration, yeah, that's particularly in that area because that water can be so high. And I think this is more an issue of, to me, it's not an issue of just people on the sewer line. It's groundwater, it's the Great Salt Pond, it's the marshlands around it. We like every other town in New England. A town is built in the worst possible place, but that's where it is.
It's fun.
Amy or Dylan, you said before with the bridge gate and some of the issues that you're fixing now, that 650 feet, that's currently, or is that part of this?
So the commission has authorized that work to be done immediately with their own reserve funds in order to address anything that needs to be addressed now.
So this is in addition to that?
This is for the balance of the collection system, but anything urgent is being handled.
I'm sorry, for the balance of the whole collection
Of the
system?
collection system. Yep.
In exceeding that 650
Yes.
feet, et cetera.
Just so you're aware, asbestos concrete in a perfect environment has a 70-year life, and that's a perfect environment. It could go either way. Once we have a more comprehensive analysis, we'll be able to make a better plan. But as far as it goes right now, we're seeing it coming, we're upwards of 50 years. We're already seeing significant deterioration in certain areas. And so we need to look at pursuing this funding to develop that plan and to rehabilitate the system where it's needed.
So if I can just ask one, I apologize, not directed at anybody, is trying to understand. So what I'm hearing is one, I'm hearing we need 2 million. I heard all the infiltration, exfiltration, got all that. But really step one is we need to do a plan to figure out what we need to do and where we're going to go. And from Jim Jeremiah, yourself on the technical side, all the way to policy. And we'd love to share ARPA dollars, which as Keith said, is pitiful amount so far. So good luck with all that. So it's really down to, is it down to the USDA match or not match, but their share? Like, why not put this off 6 months, do the work, figure out what we need to do, have a special financial town meeting if that's what's needed. And then say, look, we need 3 million or 1.5 million, or here's really the plan. I'm trying to understand, why are we jamming? I mean, I get it because I get the timing, but are we jamming something in? I just don't want anybody to be standing up there and somebody say, well, why are you doing a report after we're going to authorize 2 million versus can't we get the report, figure out what we should do and then authorize 2 million? And I may be the person.
No, it's fine. At this time, it's been supported by Jim Jeremia. It is supported by the chair of the sewer commission to move forward with this project. Again, we're coming up on 50 years. So this piping is going to have to be replaced at some point. So that's where we're at. Yeah. Can we do it within 20? Do we do it now? Again, what we're seeing currently is that we do have some areas of concern. So we're preparing for that eventuality that we're going to have to replace more than what we're just seeing. So to be clear. The cost per foot for 8-inch pipe is about $80. The cost per foot for 10-inch pipe, you're looking at 100, and then 12-inch pipe, 120. You got about 20,000 linear feet, give or take, 3.7 miles of sewer. The majority of that is asbestos concrete. A lot of it's in wet areas. Right now, from my perspective, doesn't sound very promising to put it off, but we'll let the reports come out and make a comprehensive plan. However, considering the cost of this project, as far as mobilizing individuals to get anything done, it has to be considerable. In order for us to get USDA funding, it has to be a considerable amount of money. So we can't, if we're just going to do it piecemeal, it's not going to be effective.
And I think what's sticking out for me from the conversation that's going on is you need the authorization to get the grant money.
That's right.
Is that correct, Amy? I'm not sure if I support C and D, but I'm with you on the warrant item. Because like everybody seems to say, the ARPA funds, what do we get, $130,000? Something like that, yeah, 350.
And just respectfully, I was only asking on behalf of the sewer commission, just to be included in that conversation. We had no expectations.
No, I understand.
We just knew that they had been reserved for that specific type of project. So we have a project. We thought you might be able to discuss it. If it came up and that you were having a difficult time determining priorities and sewer became of interest, there it is. That's the only request.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, Amy, dumb it down for me and maybe some others. If we're so lucky to get full payment from these grants and such, what happens to that $2 million if it's approved?
I'm going to dial you back just a little, but because you won't get 100%, I can guarantee that. But with USDA, you may get 45%. And so we would not have to borrow the full amount. We would only borrow 55%. It's an up to, and it is project specific in this case, very much related to the slip lining and the cameraing and that collection system. So we wouldn't be borrowing beyond what was necessary related to that project. Like I said, Infrastructure Bank, different program, they're still writing their rules. So it's a little harder to say, but it sounds like it'll be take the entire loan, which, we'll call it $2 million. And then they will, after the fact, go through a loan forgiveness program. That's less appealing right now because we don't know what the rules are. And we don't want to be on the hook for 2 million if we can get 45% grant over here. So we are playing a little bit of a chicken and egg game with who's going to finalize their regulations and where can we maximize the dollars the best. But the goal is to borrow as little as possible.
Thank you, Amy.
I agree with you, Andre. I'm in for the two. I'm not in for C and D. I mean, we just spent weeks, if not months, with a long-term capital plan, trying to dig out of the couch cushions, 10 grand here, 15 grand there. And then the night we're supposed to do the warrant, there's a request that adds $500,000 to the capital budget. And I'm just not comfortable with that.
Sven.
So I don't know whether the timing is just really tough on me. I have tremendous faith in the sewer group, commission, Dylan, Jim. I understand the 2 million. It going before right now, we're going to be at a max budget from a tax increase. We're looking for 10.4 for the school, which I think is going to, we'll talk about it in a minute, but I totally support, but that's a lot of money. And now 2 million. And it's a full plate. And yet if somebody would ask me, so what are you getting with the 2 million? What are you going to do? I'm like, well, we're first step is a report because we got to sort of figure out how much and what. And it just seems like we got a little chicken before the egg. I mean, unfortunately I wasn't there the other day. You guys toured the school. I've toured it enough between the gym and the weight room to realize that this is pretty critical. I have troubles not doing the 2 million. It's the timing and I want to catch USDA. I get it. I don't know. It just troubles me on the timing and all the work we did on the budget, like Keith just said, all the work we're going to about to talk about with the school and the school committees done an amazing job and building committees. And suddenly now it's, I don't know if we're doing the diligence we're asked to do by the taxpayers.
Amy, Amy. The 2 million is the sewer ratepayers? Yes. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that because that's where, that's the bright line I draw. This is in some tangential way, it goes on our balance sheet, but this is not a general obligation bond of the town. The recourse is to sewer ratepayers, but that's why I draw the bright line between if you have to do 2 million, do it with the ratepayers. I'm not comfortable asking the town to do that. 500.
So these items, I don't think, well, I'm just looking for some guidance here. We approved A. Are we gonna get a bite at, we're gonna get a bite at B during the warrant. I think we have a consensus on C and D, so. I don't know. I think we have a consensus on C and D, so I'm not sure if it's what we need. We don't need to vote on anything on this item or any more discussion on this item.
Well, it comes up again.
Right.
Keep in mind,
I'd vote, yeah, but I'd vote no.
Sorry, what?
My druthers, I think, would be to vote now to be able to deal with sewer as sewer versus in the middle of the warrant, in the middle of the dialogue that's going to get rather lengthy.
All right, so then.
That's my druthers.
I get it, okay, we can do that. So I'll make a motion to approve the increase, I will make a motion to, approve the increase of up to $2 million to the current sewer bond authorization for the cleaning, CCTV lining gravity systems project, and the annual attention town financial meeting on May 2nd. 2022. Do I have a second? I'll second. Seconded by, motion made, seconded by Keith. Further discussion?
This is a technicality. I'm not trying to muddy the waters. I'm not trying to. Isn't this general obligation of the town? Well, it just has to be.
I was under the impression it was a revenue.
No, it's just the way, it's the structure.
Okay.
Yes, so technically, from a structural standpoint, they are general obligation bonds of the town, and they, the taxpayers of the town would be on the hook if the sewer ratepayers defaulted.
Right.
So the primary payer
So
are the sewer ratepayers, but it is a general obligation
Yes,
bond of the
okay.
town.
Like the original sewer bond was.
Yes.
great, thank you. I understood it and used the wrong nomenclature, sorry.
Can somebody tell me where it says that, either in the warrant or where? I'm sorry in the slow.
Says what? Says what?
Says that its priority is to sewer taxpayer, sewer rate
It
payer.
says in the note that Amy had on the page, it says sewer rate.
So it doesn't say it in the warrant per se.
No, not in the warrant, well, yes, the notes, I presume
It's
it's
in the
the
warrant.
finance director. who
That's
wrote those notes. The notes that are next to the item in the warrant.
Flip the page.
I know, but where is it in the warrant?
It's not in the warrant.
Thank you. So it's not in the warrant, in the notes.
In the notes that are in the warrant.
It's also, and I don't have it with me, there are supporting references in the sewer and water enabling legislations, as well as the land trust, which has a similar structure, about how their borrowing is allowed. And the fact that they are general obligation bonds of the town, they are required to be under their enabling legislation, but the expectation around all that language, again, it's primarily in the enabling legislation, is that those are to be borne by the ratepayers.
Thank you.
If that
So it's
helps.
in the notes, not in the warrant.
It's not written that way in the warrant.
Thank you.
Some of it's just been around for so darn long.
I know. I'm gonna vote yes, but I
Motion's
want
been
to
made and seconded. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
vote.
What are we voting on? I'm sorry.
Voting on
2 million.
Call me right.
Sir?
Can you call me last?
Keith?
Yes.
Martha? I'm in favor.
I vote in favor because I think it's important for USDA to have unanimous agreement from town council.
Okay,
That's a thumbs up.
motion will carry 5-0.
Better get that 45%.
Thank you. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
So on the other two items, do we even need to vote?
Well, so we don't have to read the video. We just have some-
Right, yeah, all right. So, I'll make a motion to consider the utilization of Federal American Rescue Act, ARPA funds to aid in slip lining the sewer collection system.
Second for discussion.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? All those opposed? Mark?
Opposed.
Sven?
Opposed.
I'm opposed. Martha?
All it is consideration, I'm voting in favor.
Okay. And Keith? No. Motion will carry 4-0.
4-1.
4-1, sorry, Martha.
Oh,
Yeah. I'll make a motion to provide 25% financial participation, for the town to provide 25% financial participation in the cleaning, CCTV and lining of gravity sewers project funding.
second for discussion.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? All those opposed? Keith?
No,
Martha?
What are we voting?
we're voting on whether.
You didn't do a roll call,
He's doing that.
but you just said all opposed.
I said all those in favor, I didn't hear an answer. Now I'm asking.
Well, you usually do a roll call. I was waiting for the roll call.
Okay, Martha?
I'm in favor. I think it's far bigger than the sewer system, and that's why I'm voting in favor of it. Sewer district.
I'm opposed. Sven?
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Mark?
Ian, Mark.
Opposed.
Motion carried 3-2. Motion's denied 3%. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Item number 5 is discuss on the act on the school renovation project. Full meeting. Okay. We had a meeting, had a nice little tour of the school the other day. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of that project? Do we need a,
I'm concerned, I've asked a few people if they even, and I know nobody knows anything in this town, but it's the same question that came up before, and it's so big, Jess. If you could do just a quick overview of the amount and the payback. I'm sure you came prepared, so.
Of course I did. I was like, oh, look, it's on the agenda. I should go.
thank you for coming, Jess.
It's my pleasure. No place I'd rather be. Do you have the exact amount in your? 10.4. I don't. I think I have most of it. So there is a question being asked at the financial town meeting to the voters to ask for approval for this project encompassed in the project. And well, I should back up for a quick second and say that we are trying to get a tours and posters and more information. And I have seen the document that the superintendent is putting together for the financial town meeting that lays all this out in like really simply, which was helpful for me to even see. But the project itself is doing the envelope of the gym. The gym, the exterior of the gym, it was made out of metal and it is leaking. And it's mold inside, and every time it rains, the gym doesn't flood, but water comes in. The length of that structure has come to an end and it needs to be fixed. You were there, the architect explained how we got into this position, but the architect was changed in the middle of the project, but the architect we have now would not have done that, but that's all in the past. He wouldn't have used a metal structure on Block Island. So they explain that. So part of the project, almost 4 million is for the exterior of the gym to fix those problems. There's a 7 million part that's for the HVAC system because the school is very poorly ventilated. It's got all sorts of issues with all of the ventilation system. So that's a big portion of it. And then, like you were just talking about with sewer, we went to Rhode Island Department of Education and said, here's our plans, because you get money back. If you do certain projects that you explain what they're doing and you give them a plan, they say, we'll give you 30% back. Some communities get more back than that, some get less, but everybody's guaranteed 30%. And then if you add other things to your project that are part of RIDE approved projects, you can get a bonus amount back. So we added a little bit to the project to get a total of 45% back, and it was a 5-year plan to get all the projects done. And if we do them all to completion, we'll then get 45% of the cost back. That has to be rolled into future projects. So the third part of the project was a sort of renovation of the school. You were in there, it's got dropped ceilings, it's got standing water on the floor of the weight room. There's a whole drainage situation being done. They're moving around some rooms to make it better for everybody there and to clean up the issues that are in the school. Hopefully before the financial town meeting, like I said, there will be an opportunity for the public to come, get a tour to see what we're talking about, and also with big, the architects putting together big visuals, pie charts and such, and visuals, so people can see what it is. So we're trying to find a time that will work before the financial town meeting to do that, and hopefully that comes to fruition.
Thank you, Jess. Martha, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I do.
Thought so.
I think we I think you need to make it really clear how much you're asking for. Either you are a finance person and what the payback is, and does it include interest or not? All of
That, again,
those-
that's all in that document that I
But
think was just
This is
forwarded.
being broadcast. It's a good idea to get it out now.
Okay. Well, can I need
Yeah.
a couple minutes. This wasn't on the agenda that way, so I wasn't aware that this was going to be happening, so.
I just think this may be our only opportunity to explain that that 10 million is a really big number, and that's not the net to the town.
Marion?
Would you like me, if you like, do you want me to jump in?
Yes, please.
Okay.
While Jess is looking that.
Well, just as looking, under the Rhode Island Department of Education is where most of this stuff starts from. As Amy likes to say, let's roll back a little bit here. Rhode Island Department of Education, any kind of capital improvements or major construction you're doing, you need to have what's called a 5-year plan. And you submit the 5-year plan. There's stage 1, there's stage 2, there's stage 3, and stage 4 stage. And there's, first is the initial letter of intent. They did that. Then we did the stage 1, that was approved. And now they're in the process of getting the stage 2 approved. This stage 2 project will be approved most likely based on where they stand now and the feedback they've gotten from RIDE sometime in mid-June. The state of Rhode Island provides reimbursement, what they call public housing aid, for projects like this, major capital improvements projects for all school facilities. The minimum amount a community can get, a school can get is 35%. It starts from 35%, goes up to 90%, maybe even higher. The higher percentages, as you would expect, would be with your Rogers. Yeah, your Providences and stuff like that. Here we got 35%. A couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, if you all remember, there was a major bond issue that was presented to the voters of $250 million specifically for school projects that Matt Gazina asked to present to the voters to get major projects done. And the spring report for that was what's called the Jacobs report. RIDE hired this company called Jacobs that did a study of all the schools. And as you can imagine, most of the schools were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they're at their end of life and they need major renovations, not only for infrastructure, but also for 21st century education. With that comes certain incentives, and that's what Jess was talking about, the incentives. The total project is $10.4 million, $7.5 million of the project approximately, these are numbers that the architect have come up with, relates to what's called the HVAC. The 2.1 is the gymnasium, the envelope, and the remaining $500,000 is educationally driven. So originally we were at about 9.5% of this. We didn't have any education piece into it, the $500,000. RIDE came down and they do this. They come down, interview us, go over the plan that we're submitting, and they make suggestions. One of the suggestions they made is to come up with about $500,000 with education incentives, education improvement. What that did was gave us an additional 5% in reimbursement on the full project. Also, because of the HVAC we're doing, there's another 5% incentive reimbursement. So that's a total of 10% incentive reimbursement, giving us a total of the 45% reimbursement on the principal and interest of the project. Most likely this project, if it's approved by the voters, Amy and I've had some discussion, we think it'll be a 20-year bond, most likely. It'll be a 20-year bond. So the reimbursement from RIDE will be spread over the 20 years of the bond, both the principal and interest. What's interesting with this, it's a 5-year plan. However, we've been told by RIDE that the best way to get the 45% reimbursement, you have to complete the project and submit for the reimbursement at one time. We can't we will probably end up phasing the project, but we cannot seek reimbursement on a phase process. We'll have to submit it all at once in order to get those incentives. So where we are right now is we need to come to the voters for the authorization like any other bond. RIDE will most likely approve it come June. Construction will start once documents are put together. They have to go out to bid. Some of the HVAC they may do this summer. We haven't finalized that. It's pretty much where we are. The bulk of the construction you'll probably see starting in the spring. I'll be happy to answer any other questions that they may have. There was a walkthrough of the facility. The town council and the school committee did meet last Tuesday. I think it was, it doesn't matter what day. One of the things we did walk through the facility and we talked about where this project was with the residents and the voters and how aware this project was with the voters. And based on the discussion we were having as a group, we thought it would be a good idea to possibly have some of the residents set a time where the residents can walk through the facility so that they can see the work they're doing. The education piece, which is $500,000, it's for what's called a black box, which is a staging area where you can have different kind of music events and stuff like that. And also, which is called a maker space. One of the things that I've talked to Jess about based on what Keith and I were speaking about is we probably should also start looking at this as more of a community project because we see the, especially the black stage and the music room as a possibility of a place where we can have town-wide events, whether it's, maybe there's some kind of theater or things like that, community group that's doing some kind of theater or music or something that's community-based, and that space would probably be a good space to have that. So I think that's pretty much the project in a nutshell. If there are any other questions, I'll be happy to help out answering them.
I just had the numbers here. So it's 10,399,000, 10,399,139 is the total amount. And should we complete everything, the 45% reimbursement would be $4,679,612 if you get the 45% back. So by spending the extra 500,000, or it was an extra 700,000, we were getting an extra 500,000 back. It was a net difference of about $200,000 to get all that extra stuff involved in the reimbursement. So
just remember, it's over the life, the reimbursements, I just want to be clear, because a lot of people, when we talk about these numbers, they immediately think we're going to get the reimbursement right away. It isn't. It'll be spread over the life of the bond.
Yeah, which is actually, I think, far better.
And they said, I think they said monthly, right? They were talking about, it's like a small piece monthly they send, or twice a year.
Twice a year, they reimburse it.
I just wanted to be clear that there was this reimbursement piece.
Right, and just to be clear on this particular project, the reimbursement, and sometimes what you do when you do a pay-as-you-go, you get a reimbursement and you put it in like a revolving fund. Since this is related to the principal and interest, if you look at our financial statement, it's a revenue source in the financial. It is not submitted as part of a capital reserve set aside.
Thank you. Oh, you good? Kim Gavin, do you have a question?
I think it was along those lines, because I thought I heard Jess say that the 45% reimbursement had to in turn be used for future projects.
I'm sorry. I thought that was the case, but that was clarified at our meeting where it doesn't have to be for future projects.
So it's not restricted.
Thank you. What is our action on this? Put it on the warrant? Yeah.
Based on the
It's
fact
another
that the council
double.
had the meeting with the school committee, we thought we'd put this on the agenda in case the school wanted to discuss it further.
Okay.
For what it's worth, I think the idea of a tour is a very good one. And you ought to try to squeeze it in somehow because.
Maybe before the financial town meeting.
Yeah, maybe before the financial town meeting, because the picture that paints is quite compelling.
I unfortunately have been in this school enough that I get it. I couldn't join the other day. I think if there are ways to do tours all day or after school, but during that day of the FTM, that would be very powerful. Seeing is believing.
So there really is no action on this item right here. Jess, thank you for the explanation, Mary Ann. Thank you. And thank the rest of the school committee for the tour we had the other day and the explanation we had at the school. All right. Any more questions on the topic? Public council? All right. Discuss an act, item 6, discuss an act on committing easement proceeds, $52,000 received from National Grid for the purposes of infrastructure improvements. I believe this came out of a discussion we had in the past couple of weeks about refunding other things, and we had to take a vote funding other things that the council needs to take a vote to spend infrastructure monies. Is Amy, can you clarify, or Mary Ann?
As part of the budget process, you did propose the expenditure in support of the North Light project, but in order to, you're going to propose in the 2023 budget, spending that out of the infrastructure fund. In order to make that happen, you actually need to put it into the infrastructure fund, which is an action in the current fiscal year, which is when those two $26,000 payments were received. So the action is in the current year to commit those funds to the infrastructure fund so that next year you can draw them down.
Thank you. Want to make a motion?
Sure.
Want me to do it? I'll make a motion to commit easement proceeds of $52,000 received from National Grid for the purposes of infrastructure improvements or deposited into the infrastructure fund. For
Can we
the.
say to the North Light? No.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the council? Public? All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
I'm in favor, Martha? And Keith? Good, Keith?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 7 is discuss and act on adoption of the warrant for the financial town meeting of May 2nd, 2022. Okay, we have the warrant before us. I know. So any comments from council? What's that? Yeah, we took out the I'm
not telling you.
If we can start by identifying the things that have changed, on the bottom of the first page, you're going to want to strike the paragraph to authorize the town treasurer in an amount not to exceed $500,000 in order to finance capital improvements at the New Shore Sewer District. That entire paragraph can be removed. And then I would request that on the next paragraph,
same topic.
same topic, we want to annotate the comments along the right-hand side and remove the sentence, if the question above is voted yay, the $2 million will be reduced by 25% to 1.5. That last sentence should be removed.
Wonder where that came from.
There's Molly on this idea. Absolutely.
Okay, Amy. Amy, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify what you just said. If you could just repeat that. So I'm on the first page and we're going to delete the paragraph in an amount not to exceed $500,000 all the way to the bottom of the page, right?
Correct.
That's getting deleted. Now on the,
The paragraph.
Go off right at the top.
so I'm seeing this as another, on the next page, is that part runs from the first page?
At the top of page 2, you
Yep.
have a new paragraph that reads, to
Yes.
authorize the town treasurer in an amount not to exceed $2 million. That stays.
And you wanted us to, no touching of this, we're annotating the
You're
explanation.
annotating only the right-hand side comment
Okay,
and striking the sentence,
that says, if the question above is voted yay, the $2 million will be reduced by 25% to 1.5 million.
And there's no other changes you recommend?
Unless anybody else found typos, which I'm happy to hear beforehand.
Find any typos?
Go ahead. I'm not looking for typos.
You're usually good at that, though.
So how does this work, this sort of technically? Do you need a motion to delete that paragraph from this draft? Or we just say, we don't want this as one? I'm just curious.
I would make
Voted,
a,
so-
make a motion,
The whole thing.
vote the whole thing with changes made,
Gotcha.
right?
I was just.
Yeah. Any comments, questions, concerns?
Nope.
Okay,
Not that we haven't discussed in the last.
I know. I will make a motion to adopt the warrant for the financial town meeting for May 2nd, 22, with the changes discussed here this evening.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. Public comment? David Lewis.
I have a comment to make, but it's more relevant to make it after the motion, after the vote is taken.
You're standing there if you want to make it now.
Well, in anticipation of a unanimous approval of the warrant for the council, by the council, I'd like to commend everybody, council, manager's office, finance director's office, all of the department's heads, for collectively bringing the community through this grueling process. It's taken almost 2 months. And any of us who have been working at it with you from a distance appreciate how hard it's been. It hasn't been easy. So my concern is the following, and it has to do with messaging at the next final event, which is financial town meeting. So if we're lucky, we'll have a good turnout of people who haven't got a clue about all the work that's been done. And they're going to be asked if they have any questions on not only the school budget, but they're going to be asked about questions about the sewer. They're going to be asked about the police department. They're going to be asked about, who knows where the questions will be. And it gets back to now having pre-scripted who's going to provide the executive summary of the sewer, for example. And then who's the subject matter expert that's going to answer the follow-up questions, because those two may be one individual, they may be different individuals. But in the past, I think there's been an awful lot of reliance on the council to answer a lot of questions, which in reality, people working on your behalf are better qualified, whether it be the sewer chair or the police chief, the town manager, Amy, but sort of these things should be scripted beforehand so that there's not this stare from the moderator around the dais to say, who's going to really answer this question? So just take it as, this is my suggestion as having been to a lot of financial town meetings where it's important to put on the right face and present the right message with the people who are most qualified to answer questions.
I certainly appreciate that, David. Motions are made and seconded. Go ahead.
Carrying up a little bit further what David said, is there any way, I don't know the time frame on people getting reports in the land trust, the medical center, the housing board, I think I already said the land trust, ahead of time and with enough time. Have these been on clerk base in the past? It seems like people bring things in boxes the night of the meeting. And nobody has time to look at anything. And that's something that we tried so hard to not do a long time ago. And now people's attention spans, I would love if people came and actually asked questions, David. But those people all died.
Millie, can you answer that?
We've had items on the website in the past. We haven't had them on clerk base. I'm happy to change that policy because it was not considered a town council meeting, it was considered a town meeting.
Yeah.
But I can certainly see a benefit of putting, I did post the meeting on clerk base. So once the documents are ready, I'd be happy to put them up. And additionally, we will have them on a website that we may have. A website of which we have. Whatever, it'll be beautiful.
All right.
Okay, it'll be beautiful like Wednesday.
But at least we can say, you know, where it is, where you can find it before it. And if we only have one person who actually goes and looks at the reports, we're one more than
So
otherwise.
could we send out a note to the organization saying, you know, last night the warrant was adopted? Can you please provide your reports in a timely manner? Supposed?
Oh, no, I've already, I have those. I mean, I will have those tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So that, I've already done that legwork. It's just a matter of letting them, I can put it available to the board, letting people know where they can find it.
Oh, perfect.
Great.
Okay.
I actually really want to compliment Martha, because I think Clerk Base is a place that some people know about and how to operate.
Some people don't.
Those that don't, which is most, if we give them that link, you're right there and you can see each one of them. And at least we go overboard in trying to make that information available versus I'm a little worried even with our current website, it just could get a little murky. So the cleaner way to get that information out there, the better. I agree 100%.
As long as we're talking about this, about documents for the town meeting, I know that under correspondence, we have something from the Board of Canvassers about having it on Zoom.
I was just gonna mention that.
And I would at least like the meeting to be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. I don't mean for people to participate, but
I think that was the point of not being able to Zoom it. And we would have to Zoom it in order to post it on the YouTube channel.
What? Really? We post now.
You do. What is this? I'm Zooming right now and that's how I do Zoom.
I think Keith meant Zooming from an interaction participation point of view,
Right.
not the vehicle to get it on YouTube.
I agree with them that you shouldn't be able to participate.
Right.
in Zoom. I just.
You want to broadcast it?
I think that being at the meeting, I believe the intent was to not Zoom at all and not show it on.
It's the technology.
It was the technology.
It's the technology.
Is that the canvas call?
That was the Board of Canvassers' decision at the meeting. They then took that in writing.
Okay, I need a clarification. You said it was the technology. Was it more about the interaction that the canvassers were worried about versus, i.e. people calling in or?
No. It was the technology.
It was the recording of.
Motion made and seconded. I just want to get that motion off the table before we get to Zoom. Yep. Motion made and seconded to adopt the warrant for the next town meeting. All those in favor, Keith?
Yes.
And Martha?
Aye.
You're scaring me.
I had to turn my microphone on because I keep forgetting.
I'm in favor, Sven? Aye. And Mark? Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
And just one thing, I think that the people who do the nuts and bolts putting together of the budget might have started more than 2 months ago.
It is, it's January. You always think you come back from Christmas and you're like, oh, we got some time. It's the winter. And all of a sudden, it's like, no, it's budget.
Oh, no, it's other
It
people who are working
starts.
on the budget.
We still got the questions though. Item number 8, receive and discuss the update on interstate navigation meeting and the next steps. Sven, I know you had a meeting with Mary Ann and Josh, I believe, and maybe Bill. About items of interest to the town and interstate, if you want to
Yep.
elaborate.
So I sent everybody a note, and just for the public, if you didn't see it on Clerk Base, I'll read it. Per the request of the town council, town manager and I met with Josh Linda and Bill McComb on March 21st for about 30 minutes regarding the town of New Shore and the interstate navigation. Goal of the meeting was to introduce Mary Ann to Josh, which actually I didn't realize they hadn't met, but that was pretty important. And discuss a range of topics, including dialogue with the council as annual schedules are set. As many people know, sometimes we learn after the fact that the schedule has been set and there's been no discussion. Secondly, discussion around landing fees. I'll come back to that in a minute. Increased levels of tourism and ways the town and interstate can work together to improve the safety and health on the island. the next steps out of that meeting were really just to brief everybody here and discuss next meeting date. One of the things that I felt, and I'll let Mary Ann jump in, is it was a good discussion to start a dialogue, to get Josh and Mary Ann together and to just start working through things. During that meeting, we did discuss landing fees at some length. And as a result of that, I know Mary Ann's had some conversations and we talked about it a little bit, but there were questions about New Harbor, you know, even when we talked to the harbor master during the budget meetings, she talked about collecting landing fees at moorings or Anchorage or other places. I do think we should continue to talk with Interstate a lot. I think landing fees are one element of it, but I think there are a lot of other ways to start to address potential revenue streams to help cover tourism and all the costs that go into tourism. Marianne, do you want to add anything? No?
The only thing I would add is that, one of the things they brought up was landing fees and the boat basins, Champlains and areas that, and also the harbor. And obviously we had that discussion with Kate during the budget cycle. But since then, it's my understanding that Champlains and the boat basins were using that, I guess, metal box, for lack of a better term, or lack thereof, metal box. So I reached out to both of them at the boat basin and at Champlains. And folks at the boat basin were very open to enter into an agreement with the town to possibly start collecting landing fees as soon as this season. So I do have a follow-up meeting with the folks from the boat basin the first week of May. The folks at Champlains, I mentioned to them, they're going to raise that. She was going to bring it up to senior level management and get back to me to see if they were open to enter a similar agreement to collect the fees. So we'll see what happens. So we may now be collecting additional landing fees that will help offset some of the costs we have.
What about Haynes? Haynes probably has more day-to-day.
I reached out to them also. Yep, I also reached out to them and they have some questions as to how they could best go about doing that. So I said I would help them come up with a way as to how they can collect those fees because they are fairly transient. So,
So you
I
mean-
did talk to all three of them.
So you mean a collection of the landing fee through like their slip fees and then remitting to the town, something like that, instead of that box that people throws trash in all summer long?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to get it very public, and I think this is where we should continue the discussions with them and then update everybody publicly. Right now, no one is required to collect landing fees. So for example, there could be a discussion as to whether landing fees are collected by the boat basin or we sit there with a tin cup. Same thing with Interstate. And for all those who know, landing fees were about a little 109, 110, something like that this past year. So I think there's always that delicate balance of how do we work together to make sure that we maximize the revenue of tourists coming in order to, whether it's health or safety, CSOs, whatever it may be, how do we make sure that we're starting to cover more of the costs than we have in the past?
Questions?
Just would follow up and agree with Sven. I think, look, in the landing fees are great. I don't have any problem with the landing fees, but it's sort of like if we raise the landing fees by 50%, it would be 50 grand at this point at our current rate of collection. And it's one of these, if this is the problem, this isn't the answer. We have to, I think, be about over, it's probably months, thinking creatively about better ways to defray some of the governmental costs associated with tourism, I think. And the landing fee, certainly is one of them, but in the range of them, I think it's a relatively small one. That's
Well, I just think we should, we seem to always be falling behind on the schedule. Keep a late or an early fall meeting with Interstate and not let it go into December, maybe even January, which is, but right after the summer.
For the schedule.
For everything, just everything.
I'd say right after Labor Day.
We let that timing on that slide.
Yeah, and I think, look, I haven't had any sense, but, that they're open to talking and all that. So I do, Martha, you raised this, I think we both did when we met with them. I mean, it feels like whenever they talk to the council, the schedule has already been set. So I want to determine.
But not printed.
Right. So I mean, we've got to have at least some community level discussion about the schedule.
Or at least input.
Yeah, I just want to sit and talk about the schedule and what problems, and I'll have people say, look, here's my problem. I mean, the one that's most compelling, actually, Molly and I were talking about the other day, I think was, during the pandemic, the person, I hope she doesn't mind my using her name, but Edie Blaine was really struggling because she had to go to doctor's appointments, had to take her car off, and literally couldn't get back and forth with the way that the schedule was. Now, as a practical matter, my wife and I are going to be fine with the schedule, but there are people with very particular circumstances, whether that's people who want to try to commute or people who have medical issues, that we ought to at least be saying to Interstate, can we structure a schedule that accommodates some of this?
Well, I do think that conversation should be had with them. And they often have rationale for things that don't seem to make any sense, but they do from a practical operational point of view. So it's not a public, it's a publicly public utility, but it's private. It's a privately owned business.
Thank you, Martha. Is there any more comments on the topic?
Yeah, let me take a little further from what Martha and Keith said. I think the schedule is something we can remedy without a whole lot of discussion for next year. I don't know if anyone else at the table is feeling the input from other people, but they're tackling me saying they want that second boat that provides a long day during the week on the island, like the Thursday provided. I would hope that they reinstitute that. Sadly, it can't be for this year after looking at the new schedule. I'd like to see that instituted starting January 1st to put back that Thursday all-day boat for a lot of those reasons that Keith stated. For the people who need that long day, for, in most cases, the ones who tackled me for medical reasons. And it's not just for me to play 18 holes instead of 9 holes. I want to see them get the opportunity to spend a whole day on the island.
Thank you, Mark. Molly?
I just want to ask a question really quick though. I know we always talk about meeting with Interstate, and that is super important. They're year round. But I feel like Interstate always also gets sort of the bad reputation in the summertime for like all that congestion downtown, when half of that congestion is coming from the New London Ferry. And do you guys ever meet with the New London Ferry? Because I feel like can we collect landing fee from them? They're interstate, right? So like literally interstate, but so I just want to say, yeah, we can work out our problems with interstate navigation, but we need to be working with that other ferry company too, because they're bringing a lot of people in the summer as well, and interstate seems to get credited with all that.
Thank you.
We have Mary Ann or Amy on the landing fee from the New London boat. As far as I know, we've always gotten a contribution.
Yeah, it's
from them.
if I can, it's technically not a landing fee, it's a contribution or donation to the town. And it is done by the New London Ferry. Because of the state differences, there's no landing fee in that sense from the Rhode Island State Legislature.
But they have done it for a
Yes,
very long
but they've
time.
done it, and I think if you guys want, we'll make sure we set up, I think end of August, early September, let's have a meeting with both and separately and talk about schedules, talk about working together as partners. So I will work with Marianne, we can arrange that, make sure it happens. Is that fair, Marianne? Amy? What?
Schedule.
Yeah.
All right. Public, any more comments? Interstate topic? Next item on the agenda is to receive and act on a report of the town manager, Public Works, Finance, School, Library, Rec, Administration, Harbors, Broadband, Police, Roads, and Cable. Council, you've seen the report? Mary Ann, I'm not, do we want Mary Ann to read the whole thing, or do we want to have, do you have any questions for her regarding any?
Well, I think we've got a couple of highlights, don't we?
We do.
Do you want me highlights?
Highlight, yeah.
Okay. I'll go quickly.
Thinks the entire thing is.
I'm gonna say.
It's my time.
Therefore.
So, okay, I'll make this quickly. There are a few things that I want to highlight and a couple of things I want to add. The library has added a number of new items. Also, next week, Library Director Kristen Bowman will be attending the Rhode Island Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Summit for library directors. Recreation, a total of 62 kids have enrolled in the Recreation Little League program, which runs from Monday through Thursday. There's also a new Saturday afternoon flag football, which has been well received by our 3rd to 6th graders. And I have the fortunate to be able to watch that from my house, and it's really a lot of fun to watch them. Due to the demand, pickleball has increased from 2 hours a week to 3 hours on Sunday. And also Dave has instituted and started a new martial art program for elementary students. There are 2 age groups and they meet twice a week, and they have 25 students participating. Heinz Fields in recent days, they have that all the baseball field and softball diamond has been rehabbed. High school practice and games are underway. And as I said in my report, if you go by there, you hear play ball. So spring is here. Land use, we are pleased to welcome Corey Hines throughout the land use department. She comes to the position with excellent knowledge of land use, and she has hit the ground running. The police department, at their authorization from the Secretary of State, they have disposed about 26 boxes of archived records, which we no longer need. The construction of the secure evidence room in the basement has been completed, and evidence has been relocated to there. The postman of our CSOs offices has been posted, and Matt has received 24 applicants. They're looking to hire 8 CSOs officers this summer, and they have also started interviewing, and he hopes to have the CSOs starting during the week of May 22nd. The police department also has received responses for the reserve seasonal police officer posting. Initially, Matt had said they have 1, but it appears they may have 2 candidates for that program, which will be great. All police officers have completed their annual firearms certification, and they also have done refresher training and standardized field sobriety testing, legal update, ethics and police, CPR first aid, and narcotic administration. In advance of the season, a couple of the vehicles have been rotated off island for the necessary maintenance and repairs. Highway department continues to be busy with our dirt roads. With the significant rain we've had this past season or the recent months, obviously the roads need continual work, and it has become a challenge for the highway department. They're also doing the grass cutting and sweeping has begun. Additional garbage receptacles have been placed, and like everyone else, they're getting ready for the summer season. The new Ford F-550 is scheduled to be here the end of June, first week of July. If the council remembers, we purchased that vehicle about 8 months ago, and the supply chain has held up delivery of that. The highway department has assisted with the South Beach parking lot. As most of you have gone by, that project is moving fairly quickly. And we anticipate having that completed in the next 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Also, several bike racks have been located in various areas around the town. And the highway department continues to replace signs around town. Andy's Way, I'm pleased to report also, thanks to Tom Rism, who currently is juggling numerous projects, is well under the way. And also we expect that to be completed in the next week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Harbor Department is in the final stages of preparing for their boating season. They hope to launch a Marine Patrol boat within the next week. The Harbor Master's boat is still in Newport. A new motor has been installed and the maintenance has been completed on the lights and the siren system. I'm pleased to report I did have a meeting with Director Peter Alavidi, with the Director of Transportation, with 3 or 4 of his staff members. Joining me in the meeting was Jim Jeremiah and Matt Monahan. I had a follow-up meeting this afternoon with a woman by the name of Pamela Carter. She is the Acting Director of Planning for RIDOT, to discuss further items. And I'm pleased to report that Acting Director of Planning Carter and 3 other staff members are slated to come out to Block Island on on May 6th. We're waiting for the confirmation on that. Joining PM will be someone from paving, traffic engineer, and also a gentleman who's involved with the economics and policy analysis, which I found out that he's the one that has the money. So he will, because when I saw his title, I'm like, what's that? So he will be joining us, and I'm looking forward to it. It was a great meeting I had with them this afternoon. So I'm optimistic. We talked about a number of items of concerns that we've had, and also the agreement we have with them, and also the salt shed. As many of you know, the folks from Block Island headed to the State House on the 12th to present and testify 3 bills, 2 in the House and 1 in the Senate. Cindy Pappas, Chair of the Town Housing Committee, did an excellent job in testifying. The team also met with Deputy Commerce Secretary for Housing, Josh Soul, as well as Senator Susan Sanowski and Representative Blake Flippy. The good news that we have on the island is National Grid has completed the cable reburying and splicing project. The town has 8 working fibers. I didn't have a drum roll. So National Grid will be demobilizing, and they will be heading off island in the next, I would think, 4 weeks. However, they also have 1 additional test. Certex is doing 1 additional test of the cable now that it has been overboarded. So a lot's going on, a lot of projects going on, a lot of projects are being completed, and really good news with National Grid. So. As I said, I was doing cartwheels down Water Street when I got the text from National Grid.
Okay, I got 1 comment and 1 request. The bathrooms are open at Bull O'Brien Park. If family members don't know that, that shouldn't hinder them from going there and enjoying it. They've been open for a couple of weeks, so enjoy the park. And secondly, when this representative from DOT comes out, Pamela and her entourage, can you make sure I'm part of that group, please?
I think it should be that.
Well, we asked to be a part of the discussions with DOT. We asked to be part of the discussions with DM, and we haven't been. I want a seat at the table.
Well, we have to either have staff or we have to have a council meeting. I mean, I don't think we should be individually, I want to sit at the table, because that's not the way this should work. I mean, there may be something, just have a, come in and meet people for 15 minutes or something, I don't know, but I want to keep things focused. And yeah, I would like to meet with all of them.
I want their ears. I'm not gonna be here after November. I want to say my say now.
But I hear your desire, Mark, but I think we need to have one voice. Now, whether we want to meet with Mary Ann in this case, or the town manager, and collect all our thoughts to make sure she hears them and she can manage it accordingly. My fear is that if we meet with, we'll take DEM as the example, you and I as council members may have different opinions and totally say things differently. And I just think the simpler message that we can get, I agree that we as a council should maybe talk to whoever the spokesperson is or the intermediary, in this case, Mary Ann or town manager. But I like the idea of a meet and greet, just faces, but I think that I worry that there could be 5 messages, all a little different. And it powers the one voice. That's my concern.
Well, make it a meeting. I know Jeffrey was here tonight to talk about roads. He would love to be at a meeting with us and with the DOT representative to voice his opinion, just like I would. So if that's what it takes, but I want to see a body, for heaven's sakes. I've been asking now for over a year.
Thank you, Mark. Molly O'Neill, did you have some comment?
Just a question about, you meet with, DOT. Are you guys gonna be talking about sidewalks?
We will be discussing everything, including sidewalks. Sidewalks, we have to get on the tip. We're going to be discussing salt shed. These are some of the things I've discussed with them today. And with the meeting with the director, the salt shed, we have an agreement with them that was signed in 2014. They were supposed to provide a salt shed for us in that first year of that agreement. We don't have it. I want to show them the facility that's their facility that needs extensive work. I want to show them all the roads. As you know, I walk the roads. They did a lot of what I called striping. They call it striping, where they fix the road. That's all corroding. I told them that this is a well-walked bicycle community, even a hole that's maybe even a slight hole, 9 millimeters, 9 inches in diameter. That's only a ½ inch. For someone riding on a bike going fast, they're going to flip over on that. I've also talked to them about the aprons, that I think they're responsible for some of those aprons. The contract says that we will repair the guardrail and they need to provide the supplies. I want to show them the guardrails. It says the same thing about the signage. I don't mind us paying the signage. I said to them, I want you to come out now, but I also want your traffic engineer person to come out on the 4th of July weekend. So they originally said to me today, we'll be there about 11 o'clock. And I said, no, there's a 9 o'clock boat, which gets you here is 10. There's a 5 o'clock boat leaving. So I think you're going to need that much time to get to tour the town. I'm putting them in the car and I'm taking them around all the roads and showing them everything.
Okay, so you're talking about maybe renegotiating the agreement with them and infrastructure?
No, I'm not talking about renegotiating the agreement. The agreement is for another, it expires in 2014.
Okay.
I'm talking about things that are in the agreement right now that I really don't think they are meeting what they agreed to.
So sidewalks are a possibility?
Sidewalks will, yeah, we'll talk about sidewalks, but that ends up probably being a tip. They have mentioned some ways where they think they'll work with us on some of the stuff. They're very open to the discussion today. It was a very positive discussion. And I think, I'm being optimistic, but I think they heard us. And Jim Jeremiah, as well as Matt Moynihan, will be joining us on the 6th of May.
Great, thanks.
I'll say one last thing on this, and the sidewalk issue that Molly brings up is a perfect example. Sidewalks, everybody thinks sidewalks is a great solution, but it's also forecloses any other options we might have, like widening our roads for bike lanes and a path for pedestrians to safely walk and for mothers to stroll their kids. So I'm trying to think of the whole package here, not just individual ones that after they're done, we say, why did we do that if we should have done this? That's why I want that warm body in front of me.
Thank you, Mark. Okay. Any more comments on the town manager's report? No? You lasted this long, you can't leave now. All right, thank you, Sosha. Item number 10 is to receive an act on broadband report. There he is.
So John Dougherty from Mission Broadband is joining us this evening, and he's here to update the council on the project and answer any questions you may have.
Step on up, John. Thanks for coming back. It's nice to see you again.
It's great to be here.
I suppose just give us a little update as to where you are at this
I
point.
apologize for allergies. Obviously, things are blooming in Rhode Island more than they are in Maine right now. So, and since I spent the
Thanks.
majority of the last 2 weeks here,
Thanks for the warning.
here it is. So
Would you like a muzzle like Sven's wearing? A mask?
I
A mask?
brought one just in case.
Thank you.
So just to expand a little bit on the national grid splicing that went on. So obviously there was multiple pieces of that. There was the conductor piece of it, but ours is, my concern was the fiber splicing. We worked with them about 30 straight hours of monitoring it and splicing it, testing it. Mary Ann mentioned there's ongoing testing. So that happened again today. And so it's end-to-end testing. So we're not just, yes, we're worried about the national grid piece, right? But we're worried about the whole fiber, right? And in the end, you're using 4 fibers now, and you're going to be using 6 and then 8. And so we really need to test from the telecommunications building all the way into, University of Rhode Island and wherever it ends. And so that's the ongoing testing. We have some good test results today. We have raw data. We're going to be expanding on that as well. So just to give you an idea, when we talk about national grid as a piece of that, but your 8 fibers continue on from there. So we're keeping an eye on all of those too. Verizon licensing is complete. So that just means the Certex crews that are out here continue to do the aerial work, which I'm sure you've seen. Hornex is a great example, just when you see gobs of wire, which is a technical term, right? That gobs of stuff that's strung out there that goes away, right? That is just for, that will be cleaned up, I'll say. And that's really what you're seeing is every so many sections of pole, you have to have spare in case you lose a pole or something gets cut. You don't want to go all the way back to the beginning. So you have all these sections in between. That's what the gobs of wire are for. Okay, so those will be cleaned up. They'll be spliced in. Along that line, and we will provide the council an updated, I'll call it a map, because we're looking at this as a north area, an east area, and a west area. And then within those areas, we call FSAs, which are fiber service areas. And so there's about a dozen of those, depending on the area. So we're going to provide you with a colored map that's actually going to say, okay, here's the north area, here's what it covers, here's the east, here's the west, and then the actual FSAs, as we call them. So then as we start talking about, okay, when eventually, like when are we going to, start moving forward and what these areas are that can get turned up, you'll know specifically what we're talking about. So we will provide those as well.
So you anticipate turning it on sort of section by section?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And quick backstory to that. Is that what we say, Amy? Let's back up that backstory. Is engineering, right? Well, a couple things, right? So there was engineering, there was DEM permits, CRMC permits, Verizon, licensing. So all of those things come into play when we say, okay, what can we keep the crews running and get the most bang for the buck to get stuff done instead of just doing a section, waiting, moving, all that stuff. So
I have to say, I think the regularity of the process, given sort of the pandemic, the supply chain issues, all of these things has been extraordinary. That's just one person's opinion. Everybody would like to have it. Everybody would like to have it yesterday, but I appreciate the fact that I always see people out there working.
And there are more crews coming out next week. So they're going to really.
Better finish than north.
There's obviously a concerted effort to get done before the busy season. You can't do a lot of aerial work, say downtown, right? So you're actually going to see that work starting next week. I did text him. He's going to take you up on your offer. Okay. That you'll continue to see.
What is the police chief offering you?
Climbing poles. So yeah, you'll see a lot of activity continued over the next couple of months for sure. And then I know I've talked to you before or mentioned it before a few different times, contracts. Those are the things that are gonna, continue to be, I'll say the long pole in the tent right now, right? We got to get through all of those. And so the reason that some of those take the holistic view of all of that. So Ocean, you guys approved that back along, so that's good. And then we have your operator, your construction company is Surtex, so obviously they're doing it. Your operator is going to be Surtex. And so that contract is near done, not done. It still needs to be reviewed for the final kind of language before that can be presented. But along the next step of that is the internet service provider, which is Crocker Communications. That one is, that one has a ways to go, I will say. And the reason this is all important is what we're trying to do is iron out the whole implementation between your operator and your ISP, because you don't want to give Martha service. Or how does Martha get service? We're going to answer those questions first. And then when you have a service issue, we need to make sure that all of those gaps are filled. And so we really need both of those, their language, I shall say, their scopes of work, as long as the actual contract language, to make sure that they all match. And so that it's not going to be perfect, when you first go out, but it's going to be as near as we can make it to learn as we go.
Go ahead, Sven.
Just for everybody in the public, you're still feeling on target? Just always updates are good.
Yes, I would say we are not, I forget what I'm going to define on target, but the construction is going well. I think the contracts are holding us up from a, function, I'll say physically, we may be able to, activate, but without the right language in the contracts, we don't want to do that because it's not going to go. We need the implementation marriage between these providers and these contracts, because each contract member is with the town.
And I'll say to Amy, and I think I can speak for everybody, but if not, let us know if we can do anything to help in that process, or Mary Ann.
Anybody else from the council have any questions, John?
Yeah.
I'll be back.
We know. We do appreciate you coming to meetings and giving us the update. Really, thanks a lot for that.
Okay.
All right. Public?
No question.
Questions or comments? David. Next item is discuss and act on board commissions and committees. We have a letter from Charles McMillan, who's interested in being on the senior advisory committee. And there just happens to be an opening on that. So I will make a motion to appoint Charles Chuck McMillan Senior to the Senior Advisory Committee. Second by Sven. All those in favor? Keith?
Yes.
Oh, is there any discussion?
He's a terrific guy.
I know. I'm glad he's stepping forward.
That's so great.
All right, Martha, you in favor? I'm in favor.
Yeah.
Mark? All right. Motion will carry 5-0. Announce vacancies. We have a vacancy on the Commission of Motor Vehicles for Hire. It is a 1-3-year position. The individual must not hold a town taxi, bus, or limousine license. And there are 2-year terms available on the DEER task force. I would imagine that those are, we need 2 people. We need 2 people for 2-year terms. That's the announcement. Next item on the agenda is the update on the legislative agenda.
Any kind of report on how many deer were taken, or is that still being put together? I know Shoni was working on that. Let me get back. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Legislative items, legislative agenda, see attached spreadsheet. There is a spreadsheet. Do you have a conversation? Mark was actually there today in the office with the lobbyists. Really, they want to come visit us. Rick wants to come visit us hopefully before, to update us on everything. Ask the council if they could have a meeting during the day. I would imagine it's so he can do the round trip. But I'm wondering if we can't get away, if we could put him on the, if we could get him in on the Zoom at our next meeting. If we can't schedule a day meeting for him. I think it's because he wants to, doesn't want to be stuck here overnight.
How difficult is a day meeting?
I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna ask Millie to do a poll. We could do a poll of who's available and when. Reach out to Rick, see what his schedule is, ask him about the day thing. I guess on that topic.
The schedule's wider, isn't it, not vote station?
Yeah, so Millie, do the poll tomorrow. Everybody get a chance to look at their schedules and the vote schedule and whatnot. Kind of indicated that legislative items should be winding down now. You seem to think what we have on the docket before them would probably be enough for us to submit this year. But maybe not. There's a little bit of room there. So with that, I guess we want to go through the list, knock some things off of it. How do you want to handle this list?
I mean, I'd like to talk about A and B because I
Me too.
think it's very important that we express our opposition to those. They are the classic wolves in sheep's clothing, where
Let's do one at a
these
time.
are 2501 and 7539.
They're in your packet.
The 2501 purports by its supporters to be about fairness in women's sports, and it is actually a thinly veiled, perhaps, not so thinly veiled attack on transgendered kids, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's not remember.
Yeah, right, but it tends to be about school sports, is why I said kids. But the education curriculum similarly is the Rhode Island version of that Florida legislation that passed. And I personally, I mean, I'm happy to draft something, but I think we should be sending a letter of opposition or whatever it is we usually do.
Yes, I agree. I'd
say violent opposition.
Council, Martha, how do you feel?
Okay. Who submitted this?
Lombardo and Morgan. Was it Morgan?
Morgan, which Morgan?
It's E.
E. Morgan.
That's the rep.
You want to entertain, I'll entertain a motion for discussion.
Oppose, is that?
Sending a letter of opposition, yeah.
I would move that.
Absolutely.
All right, I will make a motion to send a letter of opposition to Senate Bill 2501, Fairness in Women's Sports. Keith, you want to craft that?
Sure.
All right. Second, do I have a second?
Second, absolutely.
Second by Sven. All right, so public discussion? Thanks for bearing with us all night.
Now I got the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the English teacher in me wants to like walk you through this one and the next one and show you all the ways it's convoluted and self-contradictory. But suffice it to say, I think it's like a really great moment to really strongly oppose this. Because we're going to see more of these kinds of bills coming down the pipeline in Rhode Island and obviously nationally. And I think that it's incredibly damaging to our trans students. It's incredibly damaging to our school community. And it's just, this is the kind of thing that we as a community should really be firmly opposing, for so many reasons, if you break down the language. So I encourage anybody who has questions about this to read it and read it in full, because it's pretty easy to pick apart with a fairly shallow read.
Don't be shy if there's a sample letter out there somewhere. I'd be happy to.
It's a letter. It's a letter. It's not minutes.
Yes.
Sure thing.
Thank
you.
I'm just, I don't know. I never, I'm of an age that I never would have guessed 50 years ago. I thought we were on the right track 50 years ago. I never was, it's like Twilight Zone.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, Keith?
Yes.
And Martha? I'm in favor, Sven and Mark. Motion will carry 5-0 to send a letter once it's drafted from the town council in opposition to Senate 2501.
Can I ask, I know we voted, but is it worth to ask the May 4th group if there's anything else that we should be doing or can do?
Well, I would ask what the tenor is upstate.
Well, I guess that's what are there places to poke or, they'll immediately have an idea or not?
Well, I'll have it drafted before we talk to them, so.
Good.
You know,
Is
is that good?
We have guys who plug it up there, let's figure out what else we can do.
Or if
This one to me is so galling, it's just.
Next item is the House 7539, an act relating to curriculum. And the short version, it would require that both curriculum and teaching practices in Rhode Island schools protect and respect the civil rights of the members of the school community. Obviously, you know, does anybody have any?
We should send a similar letter.
It's just a similar letter. Yeah. It's another one of those.
Yeah.
Why is it getting guns in it?
Please.
Come on up.
Or did they have guns in it?
Stop talking about guns.
I just think it's, again, this one, it's worth looking at some of the specifics here. And I think a good way to do that is for me to say what I wouldn't be able to do in my classroom that I'm doing right now. I couldn't teach a unit on the Harlem Renaissance. We're doing that as we speak because it's centering one race in particular. It's a Black arts movement. I couldn't read Night by Elie Wiesel with my seniors without also reading Mein Kampf or something similar, because I would have to, you know, represent both sides of the issue of the Holocaust. I mean, it is maddening and infuriating when you think about some of the things it's asking us to do. It really has no place in education. Another small thing, you know, I wouldn't be able to, if a student said, hey, could you call me this? I'd prefer you call me this in class. I'd have to go and get approval from every parent where a student asked for a nickname, including a student who might be thinking about transitioning or thinking about, you know, changing their gender identity. So there's a lot of problems in this bill. I couldn't use the word because it's considered hate speech according to this bill, supremacy. So if I talked about the KKK in my Harlem Renaissance unit and leading to the Great Migration, I couldn't call them white supremacists because that would fall under the umbrella term of hate speech according to this bill. So there's a lot of these things. And again, I would just encourage anybody who has any questions from the public or on the council, just read it in full because it's, again, pretty easy to see the flaws in this bill.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to send a letter to the General Assembly, or the House, actually, in opposition to House Bill 7539, education curriculum. Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
I'm in favor, Martha? And Keith.
I think it's actually worse than the Florida.
Next item is party bike legislation.
I thought we already.
It's like 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we,
I thought we determined that was what?
What?
We're not.
Party bikes. Some Martha liked that, Bill.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's party like legislation, is that other than states.
I think it was written on the back.
yes. But we also have another bike that they pass it, and we pass it on ordinance. So I don't think they have to go legislatively on this. list. Next item, House 8037, Parks and Recreation Areas, request for opposition from Barbara McClellan, Chair of the Block Island Land Trust.
I thought this was dead.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it died. Did it die?
It's dead, it died.
Well, it's Providence.
Is this the one that has the benefits addressed to the US? That's the one.
And Barbara McClellan did send a letter in opposition of this, the day of the hearing.
It was, the way to Congress. US House of Representatives.
That bill was heard on the first, and it says recommended for measure to be held for further study. I also know I spoke to the executive director of the trust, and because this bill came out late, and he was aware of it, and he was also testifying against that also. But I can follow up and see if it's gotten any traction, but I don't think it has.
So no action. Or follow. Amendments around general. 122.456 request by zoning administrator add a third alternate to the zoning board review. Mary?
Yes, so currently our zoning board is made up of 2 alternates. A lot of communities have 3. So what Jen Brady is asking is that we submit legislation. We'll have to wait until next year to increase it to 3 alternates. And I agree with her on that. They have a hard time getting a quorum, and I was surprised to see there was only 2 alternates here because I've seen 3 consistently in other life.
Is this something you want to send a resolution up this year for?
I think we're running against the timeline. We can try, but I would suggest, I have no problem waiting, and Jen said she had no problem waiting until next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
You want to wait?
No, but.
I'd go for 3.
He was sort of. He
Well-
was kind of, seemed to indicate that our.
But they have some, this is so,
Jermaine, like help it down. Yeah.
by the way, you want to throw in something that's just easy here, fine. No controversy. Everybody already has it.
I think we should have. I'm not.
I think we should have.
Do we want to submit a resolution? I mean, I'm getting,
Or do we do it next year?
we can do it next year.
I'm just thinking
I mean,
timing.
quite frankly, I'm getting mixed
We
signals.
put stuff in
Um,
since June before.
In talking to Blake, it may not be over. According to the lobbyists, maybe we should stick with what we have and fight for those. So,
Well, can you just say that everybody on the council would like this and advise us and ask, other than advise us?
Yeah, I'd ask our senator rep too, because.
Amy?
Let me check with Brunswick now.
Or Blake and Susan.
Yeah, but he did indicate that you might want to stick with the 4 you have, and so you might get the same from him. Well, the question is, when is our next meeting that we could actually, when is our, May 3rd is our next meeting. Today's the 20th.
If we need a quick meeting, this seems like a simple slam dunk.
Why don't
I
we
mean, it's
just-
not a lot of
Let
work.
me get test the voice. Get back to you folks.
Why don't we just say, if everybody says no, don't go for it this year, don't go for it this year, but we put stuff in later than this.
It seems like a fairly simple thing.
I would think we could try, so we'll. How do you make, Martha, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we contact our senator, our rep, and as well as the lobbyists, and indicate that we are in favor of adding a 3rd alternate member to the zoning board of review. If they feel time, if they, so I agree with the timing will work this year. Not put it up, not
Second.
So Amy and I have to raise a second issue with you. If you're going to put another piece of legislation in,
Yeah.
we may be requesting that they put the legislate, we need enabling legislation, although it also can wait till next year for the bond issue for the schools construction.
Why do we need conversation?
Amy, please take the microphone.
And obviously, it's not on the agenda, so.
Well, legislative
But it's under
agenda
the
is.
legislative section, and we haven't brought it before you because the conversation has been, we've probably filled up our legislative plate, and it's something that can wait till next year. But if you are considering, hey, let's try something else, in order to complete the school construction process,
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? I just want to do the roll on the motion on the floor.
I need to say this before you vote.
Oh, okay. It's, okay,
Is that okay?
go ahead.
So if you are going to submit another piece of legislation, I would strongly recommend that you consider putting in the school construction legislation, which is a procedural step that we have to go through ultimately in order to receive the reimbursements from RIDE and for the, not just the principal, but also the interest to be eligible for that 45% reimbursement. It's not something that has to be done this session. And so we were prepared to wait to the fall to do it. But I think, again, if you're going to test those waters of, hey, let's put in something else, I think this is that piece of school construction legislation is probably more urgent and has ultimately a time frame. And I would ask you to consider that it's dead.
I thank you. I'm happy to consider that. I'm happy to put the legislation in and then talk to the lobbyists and see what can fly.
So you
So there's a
want,
motion on the floor right now. For the zoning board. Should that be a separate motion?
Can you amend it to include this?
I would just amend it.
And
And just,
add it with the priority being the school,
exactly,
which I can't begin to explain.
Well,
That's
you gotta
right.
amend it.
the $10.4 million.
Yeah,
What, Amy, it's just the authority to,
And Mary Ann may be better versed in this than I am, because the last time we did a school construction bond, we didn't have to go through this process.
No,
It has something that's been introduced procedurally since then. And so it basically is another section of Rhode Island general law that enables cities and towns to issue. We have to issue those bonds through the school building authority. And if we do that, if we follow that process, then we can have not just the principal reimbursed, but the principal and interest.
I thought we were getting interest.
Again, we're down in the weeds here, Martha, but if you issue under 45-12-5 and don't issue through the Rhode Island Building Authority, you're only eligible for principal.
Let's modify your.
If you go through these other steps, you are eligible for reimbursement of principal and interest. Again, it's not something that must be done this session, but it must be done prior to the issuance of the bond.
So does basically every town that's doing school construction go to the legislature?
If you
and
want
get
the
these?
reimbursement. And what's unusual right here with other communities that I've been involved with, they always get enabling legislation because they're required to, because we have the financial town meeting, and that's where we approve a lot of our authorizations. Other places have to, I've seen it everywhere, they go up, they get enabling legislation and get approval through the General Assembly that authorizes to vote the bonds. This is the first community, because I came here and something was on the FTM. I said, Amy, we didn't go to the, enabling. She said, we don't have to do that here because of the FTM. But with this particular bond, with the school bond, to get the funding we would like, we are required under Rhode Island general laws and through RIDE to go get the enabling legislation to get the reimbursement for both the principal and interest.
all right,
Do we
Martha.
need to change the warrant too? No,
No.
that does say 45-12.
Because again, we are issuing under 4512.
Okay,
This year, next year,
whenever.
whatever.
Whenever.
That's my point. It doesn't matter.
Whenever, and as Mary Ann and Jess talked about the timing, that issue is not going to be in the next 12 months. Realistically. So.
Seems more important.
Okay, so I was amending the motion to add, and prioritize is more important. Enabling legislation for, school borrowing, which would, facilitate the reimbursement of cost and interest, principal and interest. I think principal.
And I've withdrawn my second on the original
You
motion.
just-
I'll second this motion.
you agree with the amended.
I agree with the amended.
So we got a motion that has two parts. We have and this is the first priority. We all okay on that? Does everybody know what we're doing?
Yep. Ms. Lilly, okay?
I have a sense.
Okay. and if you-
I want a really strong sense.
Just-
I mean, I-
three of you will get that. Well, I have great faith.
Really good capital letters.
Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Any more discussion from the public? Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
I'm in favor, Sven.
Aye.
And Martha. And Keith?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Andre, that was the motion to amend, that was the
Oh, I
vote to
amended.
amend.
I just changed my original motion.
Right, but you have
I didn't
to
amend it.
vote to amend the motion and then you vote to approve the motion.
If the person who made the amendment does it and the person who seconded agrees to that,
I understand it, and maybe I understand the nuance.
Let's vote again.
we can double vote.
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah, I
Make a
that's-
motion, Martha.
So now you would be, now the amended motion is on the table and you'll be voting on that.
Going the whole amendment,
Correct.
the whole thing. Okay. That's,
Do a roll call.
I make that motion. I so move.
No, you already made the motion, and I second it. All those,
Okay.
yeah, all those in favor of the amended motion, Mark,
Aye.
right? Sven?
Aye.
I'm in favor, Martha?
Aye.
And Keith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0 on the amended motion.
No
E,
problem.
F, landing fee, I think that's not this year. Okay,
I'd say that.
all right,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Item number 13 is correspondence. Julie Kiley of Block Island Tourism Council regarding trash around town. Greta Hines, Board of Canvassers, and regarding no streaming of the financial town meeting. Does anybody have that? Does,
Can we take Julie up on her?
we don't take action on correspondence, but we can
Okay.
direct the town
Could we-
manager
could
to
we-
investigate.
Yeah,
I
could
guess.
you reach out to?
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Oh.
Or Friday,
You and Julie?
and the chief and the highway supervisor.
Perfect, thank you. Molly O'Neill?
So I was waiting until you got to this part of correspondence to talk about the financial town meeting. Can we talk about that?
Trash, yeah, the Greta Hines letter, sure.
What's that?
The Greta Hines letter?
Yes,
We accept correspondence, but if you have comment on that, I mean, we're not gonna,
you were talking about it so much earlier.
yeah, and I know you're the moderator, so
That's why.
go ahead.
So, well, all right, so what I wanted to say about this is that during the last charter session, we put forward a proposal that the voters approved, that we would keep up with the most current technology available, and in order to keep our voters in the loop. Now, financial town meeting is an in-person only meeting, right? So there is no, I totally agree with the Board of Canvassers. I haven't had any discussions with them, only read the letter that's on Clerk Base. So I don't want to sound like I'm disagreeing with, maybe I'm not disagreeing with them. I don't know what their conversation was. But anyway, it's not a meeting that anybody could participate in by Zoom anyway, just the way the meeting is. However, I do think that in order to follow what we voted in the charter, it should be recorded and put up on Clerkbase. And I totally understand what these guys were saying, what Millie said before. It sounds like you were at the meeting. So I understand what you were saying about the technology or lack thereof, but I feel like we should make our best effort. So even if we put up like a really crummy YouTube video of our financial town meeting, we should follow the charter and put something up. We should make some effort to put it up. And I would say I feel that way as a member of the Charter Commission that put that recommendation forward, but I also feel that way as moderator, that we should be, they don't get to participate, but they can listen to it. So.
Thank you. Millie, just out of, I don't remember. I think maybe not. But what did we do? What was our financial town meeting? What did that look like last year? Was that a hybrid or what was that? What did we do?
It's not a hybrid. It had to be
You can't,
it was an
yeah.
in-person meeting.
Right.
There was a streaming component in which it was.
And how did that go down?
We had, I believe we had Jill Seppo who was doing the streaming.
Right. Okay, I remember. Okay, so. Okay. But just for, hold on, Sven,
I don't think.
is this a decision of the canvassers?
This was the decision of the canvassers that you have in front of you.
But is it the ultimate decision is the financial town meeting the way that is, or?
It's an election, isn't it, technically?
It's a.
Like, does the council have any say?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, Martha. And we run it at, it's not a title, I mean, it's not an election that falls under the jurisdiction of state law. So it's
It's
a
not-
meeting that has a.
It's a meeting of the legislative body because ultimately, when it comes to the budget, the town itself is the legislative body.
But it's the electorate, it's not the council meeting.
Right,
No, it's
yeah,
not.
exactly.
It's a town, it's not.
And it's a council meeting, it's the planning board, the zoning board, conservation commission, historic district commission, police advisory board, public facilities review commission. All have been posted in such digital platforms as the town may direct. And I think
They're
that's,
very well be willing to take your feedback. I'm not sure. I'm just giving you a.
Sven?
I feel there's I'd love to probe a little bit. I feel there's a difference between streaming and recording. And to me, streaming sounds like I can watch it live, run out of my house, go to the meeting and, start screaming, and they should have been at the meeting the whole time.
Why would you think you're gonna go streaming?
Versus recording, which is documentation.
more people voted that people should go than went.
And I'd much rather have a discussion about recording versus streaming. And so if they're against that, let's understand why. Maybe I don't get it, but I don't see why one couldn't, maybe you don't even do video recording. Maybe it's all audio recording, or you do video and audio. I mean, let's keep it really simple. But I don't know why we wouldn't record it and have it in the vault, quote unquote. And that just sort of, I don't know why. Maybe I'm missing something.
All right.
But I do understand why we wouldn't
I don't,
stream it.
this is not against the charter. The charter doesn't speak to the financial town meeting. Where, being recorded?
Section 3, Article 3.
But as I say, what does it say has to be broadcast?
It it doesn't even mention the word broadcast that I can find.
Yeah, broadcast is above that. It's what I was reading before was the broadcast section.
It does say it shall be the responsibility of each elected to attend.
Yeah.
financial town meeting.
And more people voted in favor of that than showed up at the last meeting.
I believe Connecticut's trying to pass legislation that you'd be fined $20 if you don't vote.
Revenue stream.
Not voting is voting.
Australia.
I'm just saying, that's not a,
So it's up to the group, but I would love to understand if there's an issue with recording it. And if there is, okay. Find out.
Marion? Try to put together a memo,
Okay, the-
I
the-
guess,
the
just of, I don't want to have another meeting about it, that's what I'm saying. So if it can be clarified in any way administratively, that's what I'd like to see done. If not, then I'm fine with that.
Ask them if they'd be okay recording it and not streaming it.
I mean, there may be a practical issue on this. I don't know how, I mean, we have enough trouble streaming this and there are only 5 of us sitting here. Not using microphones most of the time, me. And I just don't know if it would serve, if we're to a point where what we're going to be broadcasting is going to cause more problems than not. And the charter, as I said, the charter said, adopt such policies to ensure most practical and reasonable extent possible broadcast and recording of all town council meetings, all meetings of planning, zoning, conservation, HDC, police advisory, public facilities review commission.
How do you want to proceed? I'd like to move on to the next thing.
Well, we're not supposed to do anything on correspondence anyway.
David,
One of the rhetorical questions I say to myself, and I'm going to ask it publicly now, you know, given the issues that I've raised with the broadcast on YouTube today and the YouTube, there wasn't much different from the YouTube before we got the newer technology, which I really can't talk to what the state of the technology is. I would simply offer this suggestion about how to proceed on the financial town meeting for this year. Somebody should go look at last year's financial town meeting and see if in fact it recorded successfully so that anybody, if there were anybody listening, did it behave as expected and could anybody take any value from it? And let that be your guide as to what you're going to do, because if it works successfully, you repeat the same technology you did last year. If it didn't work successfully, you defer for another year while you figure out how to make it successful. But better than doing a lousy one, I beg to differ with Molly, better than doing it poorly, better to do it not at all.
right, but I also want to know if like we actually even have a say in that, like who runs the canvas sends us a note. So do the canvases like this, that's my question is.
Yeah, I don't
who
know. I'll let you
ultimately
wrestle
is
with
re-
that one. I'm just talking to the technical
Right.
success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Molly, for bringing
I
that up.
think I would just say one more thing. The whole idea that we tried to advance in the Charter Commission was to not just err on, but aggressively pursue more access, more broadcast, et cetera. And that ran through from an extra public hearing on the budget to broadcasting zoning meetings. It was, if you could identify one kind of principle that ran through many of the things that were done, that probably would be it. I mean, there are two members here who were with me on it. So to me, I actually don't think that streaming the financial town meeting is a good idea, given that you want people to go. That's my own opinion. I mean, I think if you could sit there and watch the stream, you might get some people who are sort of like, oh, I just want to watch it instead of going and voting. But I think for those who might want to say what was decided, I'd like to hear what Andre sounded like. I'd like to, I think the idea of having a video posted on YouTube of the financial town meeting is totally fine. But if we have to, buy a $500 camera to do that for next year, I guess the canvassers can tell us that. I don't know. It seemed like.
Thanks. Again, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
All right.
Chronological order.
What?
YouTube.
Yes, I know.
And now we've got day trips with mudslides.
Are we set with, does anybody have any additions, deletions, or corrections to any closed session minutes?
No.
So you're happy with,
I have one on open session,
on what date?
April 7th. says I was in attendance and I wasn't, and with
Really?
Jessica here, I apologize for not being there. We had so many meetings in a row, I completely forgot. So I apologize.
And that is the 7th. I think it's a minor. Millie, you got that? And then we can then I can approve them as a whole, as a lot. I trust you've read them all before we
Yeah,
approve them as a
yeah.
lot. Okay, just double checking.
I remember when you weren't there.
I will make a motion. Item number 14 is approval of minutes. I will make a motion to approve the minutes of March 30th, 2022, April 4th, 2022, open and closed, April 5th, 2022, open and closed, April 6th, 2022, and April 7th, 2022, as amended for the April 7th.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Any discussion? See you snickering over there.
Can I say aye? Can I say
Just
aye?
wanted you to know.
Can I say aye?
You can say aye. All those in favor, Mark?
Aye.
Aye.
And Martha, Keith, all good? I'm in favor. Motion carries 5-0 on the minutes. Anything else before we adjourn? Kim Gavitt.
Can I just ask a question about something that already happened? Was your discussion about meeting with the lobbyists?
Yes.
Would that be a public meeting?
Yes, yeah.
And will that happen before financial time meeting?
Yeah, we're hoping to get that done. That's what,
I presumably we're be voting on budget that would include that, and I'd like to know whatever return on our investment.
and that was the discussion that we had today. And he actually suggested that he wants to come. I guess it's just, he wants to come. So Millie,
Okay, I just couldn't tell from your meeting whether or not you were planning to have it before or after.
ideally it would be before the financial town meeting. Yep. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor, Keith, Martha? I'm in favor, Sven and Mark.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Petrick. Thanks for coming.
But the seats, okay, so